It was the desperate phone call from Gaza that captured the world's attention. A 6-year-old girl begging to be rescued. Now, a heartbreaking update. Welcome to Your World Tonight. I'm Stephanie Skandaris. Also on the program.
Every time there's a new year, it's always like uplifting and refreshing. It's a chance to start over for people.
Goodbye, rabbit. Hello, dragon. More than 1 billion people are celebrating Lunar New Year, and a whole lot of them think this year's going to be a whole lot luckier than the last. Plus, sweat, tears, and clay. We'll tell you what goes into making both an ancient art form and a new Canadian TV show. Hind Rajab's pleas for help were heard around the world. The 6-year-old Palestinian girl was trapped in a car in Gaza City, surrounded by her dead relatives. Her call for rescue led to a desperate search. As Chris Reyes tells us, that search ended today with a tragic discovery.
Wissam Hamada is the mother of 6-year-old Hind Rajab. I will not forgive those who let Hind down when they could have saved her, she says, after learning of her daughter's death. The young girl went missing in Gaza City last month, shortly after this haunting phone call with emergency operators. I'm so scared. Please come, she said. Soon after that call, Rajab's vehicle came under Israeli fire, according to the Palestine Red Crescent. This spokesperson says Rajab was found dead inside her family's car, along with 6 of her family members and 2 people who were dispatched to save her. The 6-year-old girl's fate, just another tragic example of a war with no escape. In Rafah, another Israeli airstrike, this woman lived in a house that was hit. Suddenly, a rocket fell on us, she said. Her family, including her sister, husband, children, and baby niece, all gone. Already the last remaining refuge in Gaza, Rafah is bracing for more assault and even more displacement. This after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered his military to develop a plan for evacuating the population and destroying Hamas fighters there. The enclave's southern tip is where Palestinians were told to go when the north was evacuated at the start of the war. Bassel Matar was one of those people. We're confused because they want us to leave to go to another safe area, but right now there is no available place other than Rafah, he says. Youssef Hamash is an aid worker with the Norwegian Refugee Council. He's in Rafah with his wife and 2 children.
Unfortunately, we ran out of options. We are trapped here in Rafah. We cannot move from Rafah to any different location.
In Tel Aviv, thousands gathered to call for the release of hostages, but also new elections. Orly Zinger is one of the protesters questioning Netanyahu's government. How does it seem reasonable to move 1.4 million from Rafah, she says. It's absurd. I don't think it's practical. It's sad, the point we have reached. For Hind, Rajab's mother, it's also a point of no return. My daughter had a dream to return to her home, she says. Yet another dream destroyed by a war that only keeps on raging. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Underneath Gaza City, IDF forces lead reporters through a tunnel that they say runs under the headquarters of the UN aid agency UNRWA. Hamas uses a vast tunnel network under the Gaza Strip to move fighters and weapons. Israel's claim of a tunnel under UNRWA comes just weeks after Israel alleged UNRWA workers were involved in Hamas's October 7th attacks. Several countries, including Canada, promptly cut off funding for the aid agency. In a post on X, UNRWA's Commissioner General wrote the building was vacated on October 12th, and UNRWA was unaware of what is underneath its headquarters. Well, there are still many questions about what will happen to Gaza and the more than 2 million Palestinians who live there when this war is over. In the absence of any clear plan, some in Israel's far right are making their vision loud and clear. They want to rebuild Israeli settlements that were dismantled nearly 20 years ago. As Rebecca Collard reports from Jerusalem, that idea has supporters in high places.
As Israeli soldiers pushed deeper into Gaza in December, a member of Israel's Knesset, Limor Sanhar-Melek, posted a video of herself in a boat off the coast. Settlements in every part of the Gaza Strip, she says. Large, extensive settlements without fear, without hesitation, without humiliation. This is the land that the Creator of the world gave to us. She calls the return of Israeli settlements to Gaza a true picture of victory. Sanhar-Melek is a member of the far-right Jewish Power Party, and her comments reflect a growing movement in Israel for building new settlements in the Palestinian territory. In 2005, Israel pulled its soldiers and some 9,000 settlers out of Gaza. Jerusalem's Gush Katif Museum pays homage to the largest of those settlement blocks, built in the southwest of the Gaza Strip between Rafah and Han Yunis. The museum exhibits photos and relics from the settlements, including a 6-foot-tall menorah that sat on the roof of a synagogue there. Piles of bright orange shirts are stacked on chairs and tables. Avner Franklin works here.
The shirts say, come back home to Gaza, okay, to Gush Katif.
Were you selling these shirts before, or did you just make
them? Yeah, we always sell shirts. But
how much more is the demand now?
Now it's just 100 times.
100 times more.
Okay, the center, okay. 1, 2.
Manny, who didn't want to give her last name, is here to buy Return to Gush Katif t-shirts for her 6 children. She's originally from the U.S. She says she hopes her children could one day live in Gaza.
Sending Jews back into Gaza to live there will strategically help us, both as a state and as a Jewish people, to secure our future in Israel for hundreds and thousands of years to come.
Mariv Zonstein is an Israeli researcher with the International Crisis Group. She says the idea of returning settlements to Gaza is not new, but that...
October 7th definitely provided a lot more emboldening and legitimacy for those on the right who have been talking about expanding settlements, basically, one Jewish supremacist state between the river and the sea.
A few days after Sanhar-Melek's boat trip, an Israeli real estate company posted images of Israeli settlements superimposed over the rubble of Palestinian homes in Gaza. Wake up, a beach house is not a dream, it read. Zonshine says re-establishing Israeli settlements in Gaza is not an official government policy, but...
It's possible that as Israel, develops its military presence in the northern Gaza Strip and tries to create some kind of security buffer zone, and it could be that there will be attempts for people to also settle there again.
The U.S. says Palestinians must be allowed to return to their homes after the war, and that Israel cannot reoccupy Gaza in the long term. The last few months have raised questions about whether or not Washington has the leverage to ensure that. Rebecca Collard for CBC News, Jerusalem.
In Pakistan, people are anxiously awaiting the final results of Thursday's election. Hundreds of people stage a protest outside of the Elections Commission office in Karachi. It's an election that's been plagued by chaos and violence. Multiple people died in attacks by militant groups, and mobile networks were temporarily shut down. Both former Prime Minister Imran Khan and former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif declared victory on Friday. Khan is in jail, and his PTI party was unable to enter the election, but many of those loyal to him ran as independents. They won the most seats, but no party has won a majority. Now, Sharif and Khan's parties are seeking to form coalition governments with other parties. PTI party members say they'll start holding peaceful protests on Sunday if complete poll results are not released by then. Well, the rabbit is out. Today, the dragon came roaring in. More than 1 billion people around the world are celebrating Lunar New Year. It symbolizes, among other things, prosperity and renewal. And after a year marked by financial turmoil and war, many are hoping the Year of the Dragon brings a fresh start. Michelle Song has more.
All 4 floors are packed as crowds gather at Toronto's Chinatown Centre to celebrate the Lunar New Year. Adults and children straining to get a glimpse of the lion dance, a traditional Chinese custom where dancers are jumping and shaking the red and gold lion costume. Are you excited?
Yes.
Canadians from all backgrounds came to watch the festivities, including Heidi Bramfitt. She brought her daughter Beatrice, hoping to introduce her to Lunar New Year traditions.
I think exposure is important. And yeah, she learned about it in school, very excited. So I wanted to expand it.
Beatrice was so excited, she even wore a special red outfit to match. The color represents good fortune when bringing in the new year.
She planned that out as soon as she found we were coming. She figured out all her red stuff and just put it on.
The Lunar New Year is a time to hope for good fortune, prosperity, and joy. And this is the year of the dragon, one of the most prestigious of the 12 animals of the Chinese zodiac. It represents change and creativity. After a year of surging inflation rates, natural disasters, and geopolitical conflicts, many people are hoping to see a positive change.
The world cycles go in 20-year cycles.
Paul Ng is an expert in Chinese zodiac. He says 2024 is the beginning of a new cycle, so we should expect it to be different from last year.
So last cycle began in 2004, ends in 2023. That's why 2023 have been such a crazy year. So much uncertainties, so many changes, and people just got lost. Inflation, everything, because it's the last year of a 20-year cycle. It's like going to the end of the road.
Back in Toronto's Chinatown, Carrie Hsu, who is spending the holiday with her family, is hopeful.
But I think, every time there's a new year, it's always uplifting and refreshing. It's a chance to start over for people.
But for personal finance expert Barry Choi, he says Canadians still struggle to remain optimistic, no matter which zodiac sign it is.
I have no doubts that a lot of Canadians are worried about their finances. We've seen layoffs already in 2024, and we're just in February.
With 2024 already off to a rocky start for some, it's still unknown whether the Lunar New Year will bring that good luck everyone is hoping for. Michelle Song, CBC News, Toronto.
For many English-speaking Canadians, Montreal is a cosmopolitan oasis, a diverse city with a European feel, where Canada's two solitudes coexist. And that unique character helps attract thousands of young people each year. But Quebec's plan to hike tuition fees for out-of-province students is reducing Montreal's magnetic pull. And as Kwabena Oduro tells us, some of those students worry it could change the city they love for the worse.
You just feel less welcome.
That's how Kala Chantrell says she was feeling when she first heard the news about the tuition hikes. The grade 12 student from Ontario still applied to McGill, hoping to join her older siblings in Montreal. But the regulations are making her second guess her top school choice.
I think McGill has been a dream of mine, and it's kind of been lowered in its ranks.
Starting this fall, incoming students from outside Quebec will pay a minimum tuition of $12,000. That's an increase of about $3,000 over the current rate. While the regulations apply to all schools, English language universities are feeling the biggest impact. McGill has seen nearly a quarter fewer applications from out-of-province students compared to last year. Fabrice Labo is the Deputy Provost of Student Life and Learning at McGill.
People are confused by these new measures, and they're hearing really the general message of you're not welcome to Quebec. Us at McGill, we're trying to send the opposite message, of course.
Concordia University's application deadline is in March, but so far, President and Vice Chancellor Graham Carr says they have seen a 27% drop.
Anything that points to a shrinkage in student numbers will have very serious financial implications.
Current students like Samia Babcock Chantrell aren't affected by the tuition hike, but they say they are feeling some ripple effects. The Concordia student says the number of courses offered next semester is much smaller.
Yes, it makes me really disappointed and honestly quite angry because all of these things won't be available for students now and students in the future.
Babcock Chantrell says student life on and off campus is also taking a hit.
I came to Montreal because of how culturally diverse it is, and I think that will definitely change with these tuition hikes.
That worries Mayor Valerie Plante, who calls the move from the provincial government an attack on her city.
It's good for the businesses. It's good for downtown, by the way. Universities also contribute directly to the economic vitality of our downtown core.
Quebec's Premier François Legault disagrees.
We don't attack Montreal. We protect French. French will always be vulnerable in North America.
That's why, along with the tuition hike, starting in 2025, students entering Quebec's English language universities will also have to learn conversational French by the time they graduate. Even though she's not being forced, Babcock Central says she's already learning French to better integrate into Quebec society. Kubino Duro, CBC News, Montreal.
Still ahead on your world tonight, Africa's biggest soccer tournament is underway, but activists are holding up a yellow card, saying female fans are being sexually harassed and assaulted. We'll tell you what they're doing to make it more safe. Hungary's first female president has stepped aside. Katalin Novak, who's a close ally of Prime Minister Viktor Orban, was facing public pressure over a decision to pardon a man found guilty of covering up child sex abuse.
Tavaly áprilisban abban a hiszemben döntöttem a kegyelem mellett.
Novak delivered her resignation on live TV today. During the Pope's visit to Hungary last year, she pardoned 25 people. Those names were revealed last week. One of them was a man convicted of hiding the crimes of his boss, who was jailed for abusing children at an orphanage. Another politician in Novak's party has also resigned because of the scandal. 30 people are facing charges in Cuba over a major poultry heist. Thieves took 133 tons of chicken meat from a state-run facility in Havana. That's a month's worth of rations for a medium-sized province, according to the government's food distributor. Cuba rations staple foods like meat, rice, and beans, but most of the food Cubans eat is imported, and the country's struggling economy has meant fewer chicken rations have been available in recent years. If convicted, the suspects could face up to 20 years in prison. Qatar has won its second straight Asian Cup title in soccer. Left-winger Akram Afif recorded a hat-trick in today's final, leading to a 3-1 victory over Jordan. Qatar hosted the tournament, and more than 9,000 kilometers away, the host of Africa's biggest soccer tournament is hoping for a similar result. In Ivory Coast, fans celebrate their team making it to the final of the Africa Cup of Nations. The Elephants are facing Nigeria's Super Eagles on Sunday for the trophy. But in the shadow of the celebrations, local activists warn female fans are being targeted with sexual harassment and sexual assault. As freelance reporter Estelle Jonjo tells us, they've launched a campaign to keep women safe.
Senegal are African champions!
When Senegal won its first African Cup of Nations last February, the scenes of pure joy in Dakar quickly became a nightmare for women. In 2 days, more than 20 sexual assaults were reported to Senegalese women's organizations. With the tournament now underway in Ivory Coast, a local feminist association called Stop the Black Cat and West African feminist organizations have launched a digital campaign called Can Safe. Benedict Johan is the group's founder.
It's about raising awareness, so we pass the message on, having a safe can, but we raise awareness also about gender-based violence. What is gender-based violence? How to know if I'm being abused, or when to actually raise the alert. So we have distributed those flyers. It's very important to us in Stop the Black Cat to speak about consent.
The campaign is pushing against a male-dominated sports culture, where women fans reports it's not uncommon for men to make unwanted comments about their bodies. Slogans like, offering football tickets to a woman does not mean she owns you, resonates with women like Akosua, who traveled from Ghana to cheer on her country's team.
I think it's a good thing, so that men know that women are not always there looking for their attention. Women can be there and have fun by themselves and be left alone to be safe.
Assini Dumbi is in charge of a fan zone in the city center of Abidjan, where fans without tickets can watch the tournament together. She says she's aware of the potential risks to women fans and is working hand in hand with authorities to prevent them.
To ensure security within our village, we have municipal police officers around. It pushes everyone to stay cool. And on top of that, there's a second group of agents that we, the organizers, also made available to people to be a little closer to the public and, naturally, to make sure there's no harassment and assault.
Even though Benedict Joanne hopes the hashtag #CanSafe campaign helps women feel safer, she says she herself isn't comfortable attending a soccer match.
It's just very scary. And it's funny because I'm myself in this campaign, but to be honest, it's like I'm hesitating still to go to a stadium because I don't know how I will react. I prefer to stay where I am in my village Can and where I feel like more secure.
Stop the Black Cat has created a hotline to collect reports of sexual violence. It also encourages anyone who has been attacked to contact the police. Estelle Jonjo for CBC News, Abidjan, Ivory Coast.
For generations, churches were the gathering place in small communities. But with high maintenance costs, lack of funds, and declining membership, many across the country are closing their doors. In Newfoundland, people are finding creative ways to keep those spaces open. Peter Cowan explains.
The stone cathedral in Harbour Grace has dominated the skyline for more than a century. It's where the community came together to mark weddings, graduations, and funerals. But 10 years ago, the shrinking congregation realized they couldn't handle the growing costs. Patrick Collins went to the church for decades.
When we got word that they had to close the church, it was devastating to the town, but I guess seeing it barred up there and closed for a number of years, when we knew it was no longer going to open, we knew the writing was on the wall for it.
Because it's a spectacular building.
Where others saw a building headed to ruin, Brenda O'Reilly saw an opportunity for resurrection. She runs a series of restaurants, and now she's investing millions to transform this building. On one side, the west transept, there'll be a brewery and distillery. The east transept, a restaurant. The crypt underneath becomes a spa. She still wants people to celebrate important moments here, just in different ways.
The churches were the center of communities in a lot of places, and we want this building to be accessible to the public and to the residents of Harbour Grace.
This trend is snowballing, and it's snowballing across Canada.
Nicholas Lynch is a professor of geography, studying the transformation of churches after they close. Not everyone loves the idea of a house of worship becoming a bar, but he says it's a good fit for an old church.
An egregious reuse might be sort of oftentimes lofts and luxury condos, because now you're taking a building that had been built with this large volume and breaking it up into smaller units.
I bought a church and it's available for rent.
Chris Shortle is trying to avoid that fate for St. Agnes. It's one of dozens of properties the Catholic Church put up for auction to raise money to pay for abuse survivors. It sits on a hill in Pooch Cove, overlooking the ocean. He says other people were interested in the land to knock down the church and build houses, but he's trying to keep it as a community gathering place.
Hopefully people will rent it and use it for music and poetry readings and theater and dance parties.
Back in Harbour Grace, part of the church should be open to the public later this year, and Patrick Collins will be there.
I don't drink myself, to be honest with you, but I'll certainly go there with others. I look forward to it. I think it's going to be a wonderful place.
He knows it won't be the same cathedral he went to as a kid, but he's glad future generations will get to enjoy the building just in different ways. Peter Cowan, CBC News, Harbour Grace, Newfoundland.
The ancient art of pottery is getting a modern rebirth thanks to social media and to Canadian actor Seth Rogen, who's been posting videos of his work online. Now he's sharing his expertise on the Great Canadian Pottery Throwdown, which premiered on CBC TV earlier this week. Eli Glasner looked into the trend for us. So, Eli, this sounds like it would be really right in my wheelhouse. I love ceramics, I love pottery, but how do you make a reality show about it?
It turns out pottery is quite fickle, and so the perfect subject for this kind of show. The program involves contests, some artistic, some kind of skill-based, like can you make 3 perfect cups? But if you've worked with clay, you'll understand it's the main character. One of the judges, Brendan Tang, told me clay is the biggest diva in the room. Anything can go wrong. It's the drying. It's what happens with the glaze. Now, on the show is also Seth Rogen, executive producer, guest judge. Like a lot of people these days, he fell in love with ceramics. Started as a hobby that he documents with videos that get millions of views. And it's this aspect that is part of what's driving so many to the art form, according to Tang.
It was really like social media that sort of thrust it into the limelight. I think it kind of relit the romance of ceramic.
There's these amazing videos documenting every bit of the process, and it's so satisfying to watch.
It's satisfying, I guess. I mean, I should clarify that I like buying pottery. I don't know much about making pottery, but I understand that you tried your hand at it.
So I talked to the judges on this show, and they said classes, enrollment, courses are all filling up. A lot of those videos are turning viewers into wannabe potters, so I dropped by Clay With Me Studio in Toronto. Gabrielle Anuelo is the owner. She started giving lessons in her kitchen. Now they have 2 locations, and she says after the pandemic, clay gave people a way to reconnect.
You are playing with nature. You are like just connected right away with nature. And you're making something artistic to use it.
Now, I did get the chance to get behind the wheel. I threw my clay, went splat on the wheel. And the first second I put my hand on that lump trying to make it into a bowl, like, I kind of get it, right? You can't look at your phone. You have to focus. Your mind is on this spinning ball of mud. And there is something about it, like I felt kind of like I'm reconnecting with my childhood. It's also kind of meditative and calming. And this is not about instant gratification. You have to wait. You have to let it dry. You have to trim all of that until you finally get that thing.
So what has this new wave of interest done for the art form?
Well, certainly, I think in general, there's more appreciation of this art form of ceramics. There's more customers. Now prices are rising. But there is a gap between clicking on those artful videos and launching a business. And that is what Garbo Ju discovered. She was working in the architecture field in Montreal. After her TikTok account blew up, she tried to leverage her nearly 900,000 followers into opening a studio. But the customers only see the beautiful end results. She spent most of her time dealing with cracked cups, rising material costs, and then battling the temperamental kiln.
You see an error code go on and you're like, okay, well, I guess it's time to play electrician again today. And then you're just trying to, wait for the kiln to cool down and pray that the stuff inside isn't ruined at all.
After burning out, Grumpy Kid Studio closed its doors, and she's hoping that this explosion in interest will help customers understand the cost and the real work that goes into those beautiful objects you like to buy.
That I love to buy. Thank you so much, Eli.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Eli Glasner in Toronto. Lenny Kravitz, one of the artists hoping this year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame will go his way. He's one of 15 nominees who have just been announced for 2024, and he's one of 10 who are up for the honor for the first time. Mariah Carey is another, so are Sinead O'Connor, Ozzy Osbourne, and Oasis.
Today was gonna be the day, but they'll never throw it back to you.
Performers are eligible if they released their first commercial recording 25 or more years ago. This year, that's 1999. After the 1,000 members of the international voting body have their say, around 7 artists are selected, sometime in late April. It's a tough competition with some big names in the mix. Or make that big name singular.
Do you believe in life after love?
Cher is nominated for the first time. We know, it's hard to believe. Here's a little more Cher on Your World Tonight. I'm Stephanie Skandaris. Thanks for listening.